Pre-impingement, it's probably going to be structure and site prep, setting up sprinklers. On impingement, when the fire gets there, with our big engines, we can do deluge protection in some areas, and in other areas where we need to be more mobile, we'll use the Type 5 engines for spot fire suppression in the front yards and backyards. Now, talking about that Type 5 engine and the spot fire suppression, I want to do a little bit of a breakdown on the effectiveness of tactical engines in terms of, are they the big pavement queen Type 1 engines, or are they Type 5 engines, the smaller pickup truck style? As far as getting the right resource, this is key. We saw those two engines drive right by the spot fires, and a classic example of being overwhelmed and ineffective, been assigned elsewhere, hadn't planned for that, too many spot fires, lots of reasons that we don't get the resources on the fires, the spot fires, as they take out the neighborhood. However, if we have a Type 5 engine that's assigned to this area where these two spot fires are seen on the front lawn, there's two firefighters with 150 gallons of water on that truck. Can they suppress those two spot fires in less than the 1 minute it took them to propagate into destructive fire? The answer is yes, they can. All firefighters will tell you they could do that if they had 150 gallons of water and a truck that could drive up on the sidewalk and through the front yards. And you see we've taken our ineffective response and eliminated it by having the right resource. So this is key, remember that. Especially if we deploy these resources, these Type 5 engines, to specifically mapped pre-planned areas, such as in our tactical response unit plans. So these pre-planned tactical resources can very successfully suppress spot fires and prevent structure ignitions because of the planning. Now I want to talk about Type 5 engines, cost versus availability. Your full-on Type 5 engine, there's the Kamloops Humvee, 75 to 125 grand. There's our slip-on the right-hand side, about $4,000. Both of them put water on fire. The thing about the slip-on, it only costs $4,000. The truck is actually zero cost because we're getting emergency use of our municipal fleet. And this picture may not be the Slocan municipal fleet, but some fraction thereof. Most of us have a bunch of empty trucks kicking around, or trucks that can be made empty fairly quickly. So the beauty of the slip-on Type 5 engine is that you have availability. You can have a lot of these. A lot of fire departments that I'm working with, or maybe I should say a few fire departments I'm working with, are purchasing these in 5s, okay? Because for 20,000 bucks, you've got yourself 5 Type 5 engines all of a sudden. A beautiful thing. The only thing that isn't so great about the slip-on is the cool factor. And we'll leave that one alone. Let's talk structure protection effectiveness. As far as wetting options, can we get more water onto the critical areas faster? I want to talk about the SPUs, the sprinkler trailers, the high volume systems, and other options. SPUs, great tool. Sprinklers came to us in 2003. My comment, BC is under-resourced. I would like to see 2 per fire department. It sounds like a lot, but believe me, I think in 10 years we're going to look back and say, remember when we thought 2 SPUs per fire department was excessive? I note that lower cost development is possible. The Abbott report actually refers to some ways to decrease the capital acquisition cost of the sprinkler trailers. Enough about sprinklers. Let's talk high vol systems, which are big perimeter wetting using sprinklers 4-inch and 8-inch line. I suggest you figure if you need them, source where you're going to get them, pre-plan it. There are contractors available. You can get them in for a relatively reasonable cost to give you an exercise testing, and then you can retain them with hazard to be available to come and pull big water out of your water sources and pump it around the perimeter of your community. Other options in terms of pre-impingement wetting, there are many. You know, a flat deck with a tank. Street sweepers can have the brushes taken off and the nozzles turned up. Fort McMurray had 20 of those street sweepers going across the pavement after it burned to the ground, or after 10% of it burned to the ground. Wouldn't it have been nice to have them there spraying water up into the front lawns, as you see on that right-hand picture, when the fire was approaching? They hold a lot of water. Even those little street sweepers hold 300 to 700 gallons. There's your little ATV with a small amount of water, but running down the back lanes and putting out spot fires can save the day. So this requires pre-planning, be inventive. I want to talk about wildfire emergency water supply analysis. Do you really have enough water? Start asking yourself some tough questions on where you're getting your water, how it may fail. What's your security of supply? What's your system redundancy? What's your availability of a secondary water supply? And it's probably worthwhile to assemble a technical review team, which involves the fire department, municipal ops, and consulting engineers, and solicit their input. It'll probably require, you're going to discover some things that may make you uncomfortable, and you'll have to prepare a memo to council, a discussion paper, and amazing when everybody realizes that the water they thought they had maybe isn't going to be adequate for the water they're going to need given wildfire coming to town. So things happen, but it's up to us as the fire professionals to initiate that. I want to talk briefly about evacuation planning because it's not really part of tactical response planning. It's its own separate jurisdiction, but I think it's important that we plan to avoid evacuation scenarios like we saw. If we want to consider that where the fuel's adjacent the evacuation route, we're not treated, as we see screen left there, the likelihood of evacuation fatalities with high winds is quite substantial. Note the convective flame length on screen right, and you've got yourself the fire going harmlessly upwards. With stronger winds, that fire could have vorticed across the roadway and impacted those vehicles, and quite fatally, as has occurred in other jurisdictions, Portugal, Australia coming to mind. So really, let's consider what's going on with our evacuation routes and our planning. So that all involves referring to the interface evacuation plan, an interface fire evacuation plan. A lot of evacuation plans are generic. Really drill down and think about how's the evacuation plan going to work with fire. Okay, priority for action. John had asked us to kind of bring our key points to the group for consideration. And I would like to summarize with a presentation checklist here. All of the items that are stacked up there are things we've just talked about, except for the bottom one, the Fire Smart Prevention Program, but we've kind of alluded to that a little bit. And these are generally the responsibility of your municipal chief or deputy. They've got a big task set. Thanks, they say. Boy, as if we didn't have enough to do. Well, you know, I'm going to suggest that they do have enough to do, and you know, if you think that as a municipal chief or deputy you can actually get all this done, you're not doing enough of it. So I'm going to propose, and just put this one in your hat and think about it. You delegate to a new concept, the WUI Fire Officer. And this is a person selected for their background and ability to probably one per fire department if you have WUI interface jurisdiction within your response area. And I would propose the job description includes all of your WUI fire response planning, delivery of all WUI and wildfire training to the department members, communications in terms of getting approval and funding acquisition for your various programs. That is a big job. You really spend time getting money and buy-in. Then, of course, SPU development, get those sprinklers trailers built, get your Type 5 engine program underway, and then the whole Fire Smart program is a discipline unto itself in terms of local Fire Smart representatives. This would be your WUI officer would be one of those people, getting those neighborhoods rolled into the Fire Smart Communities program. Okay, that's my takeaways for the group, and I would say thanks for your interest. There's my contact information, and any questions I guess we'll be answering afterwards.